Hare Krishna. So welcome to the summary of chapter 6, Dhyana Yoga. We covered this in detail, as you know, in our Bhagavad Gita class at Slough Hindu Temple this Sunday. Well, this is the opportunity for those who missed the class and also for those who would like a recollection of chapter 6. Each chapter of Bhagavad Gita opens another layer of wisdom. And Bhagavad Gita has been designed in such a way that Sri Krishna Paramatma, being the best teacher one can ever get to teach spirituality, reveals chapter by chapter finer nuances of spirituality and does it so very logically, methodically, and in a question and answer format, which is the most useful and most easy to understand format for all the aspirants of spirituality. All these one-way discourses, upadeshas and pravachnas do not make as much impact as a two-way conversation. So Bhagavad Gita is a dialogue between the disciple and the master. Disciple can stop the master at any point in time. Arjuna uvacha, and then he starts off with a question. And Sri Krishna, with all his patience, and that only the divine can exhibit, answers the question again and again, Sri Bhagavan Uvacha, as we all know. And this goes on for all 18 chapters. So let's start this one. Chapter 6. So what is the link between 5 and 6? Krishna at the very end briefly mentioned the system of Astanga-Yoga. What is Astanga-Yoga? It is a strict, regulated, focused regime of an ascetic yogi. Path of Astanga-Yoga is explained in its entirety in chapter 6. Essentially, Krishna's purpose in discussing the 8-stage path is simply to establish the practicality for the purpose of self-realization and spiritual perfection. And as you know, in an age surcharged with temptation and distraction, the easiest and the topmost path of self-realization is Bhakti Yoga. In this chapter, various things are given. Firstly, the angas of Astanga Yoga are given, and the process itself is given. The 2 stages are given, the beginning stage and the stage of perfection. And finally, towards the end, Krishna talks about the topmost yogi. So what's the acronym of this chapter? Easy, enemy or friend, Astanga-Yoga, success and failure, and a yogi. Enemy or a friend. In this section, especially shloka number 1 and 2, Krishna is saying very clearly, renunciation and yoga, they are the same. Not much difference between the two. In shloka number 3 and 4, Krishna is talking about the 2 levels of Astanga-Yoga. He's talking about Yoga Rurukshu, which is a beginning stage, and Yoga Rudha, which is a perfection stage. Astanga-Yoga means 8 limbs. Astang is 8. So 8 limbs. Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayam and Pratyahar. These 5 comes under the category of Yoga Rurukshu. The next stage, which is Dharma, Dhyana and Samadhi, which is the intense meditation stage, is called when a person is in the stage of Yoga Rudha. Shloka 5 and 6, Krishna talks about the mind. The controlled mind is a friend and an uncontrolled mind is an enemy. And that's what the acronym is all about. Enemy or a friend. It's all about the mind. Why uncontrolled mind is an enemy? The uncontrolled mind will agitate, misguide, and entangle the soul within this world, forcing us to succumb to our lower nature of lust, anger, and greed. Whereas a controlled mind, on the other hand, acts as a friend on a spiritual journey, helping us make progressive and healthy choices, which brings us closer to God. When one controls and befriends the mind, one experiences tranquility, peace, and freedom from the duality of happiness and distress. In shloka number 7 to 9, the wonderful system of a person is described who is in yoga ruda state, which is the highest level. He's saying this person is equipoised, be it winter or summer, be it happiness or distress, be it honor or dishonor. He is equipoised in all these situations. And he is fully satisfied because he's got the knowledge and realization. He sees pebbles and gold all on the same level. He treats everyone equally. So this section is E is enemy or a friend, all about mind. Okay, control mind, friend, uncontrolled mind, enemy. Next section, Astanga-Yoga. In this section, Krishna covers Astanga-Yoga in its entirety. Shloka number 10 to 17, there's a description about how this Astanga-Yoga should be practiced. First step is find a secluded place, practicing celibacy, and under strict regulation of eating and sleeping, the yogi would sit in a perfect erect position, focusing his consciousness on the Supreme Soul within. Despite and bodily distraction, yogi would meditate in this way for many years, maintaining stillness and complete silence. After hearing about this strict discipline, Arjuna admits his amazement. This practice seems impractical and unendurable. He explains, Chanchalam himana Krishna, to discipline the mind is more difficult than controlling the wind. Krishna asserts that disciplining the mind is essential. And that is possible with two things Krishna mentioned. What is that? Practice and detachment. Abhyasa and vairagya. At the end, Krishna said the mind control is very important because if the mind is controlled, self-realization is very difficult, and the whole mind is whose mind is controlled. Because if the mind is not controlled, self-realization is very difficult. And whose mind is controlled and who is strived by appropriate means, he will surely get success. Success and failure. In this section, Arjuna is asking a question. Oh Krishna, can you tell me what happens to that yogi who was sincerely practicing but who couldn't attain perfection? What will be his destination? Such a person does not meet destruction either in this world or in the spiritual world. He can never overcome by evil. He was sincerely practicing, and yogi who practice for some time and falls down, what happens to him? He goes to Swargaloka, enjoys there for many years, and after that he comes down to this earthly planet and takes birth in either of the two families, Shuchinam and Shrimatam. Shuchinam is righteous Brahmana family, and Shrimatam is a very rich family. And what about the person who's been practicing for a long time? He takes birth in a family of transcendentalists, wherein right from the childhood he's given a lot of opportunities to revive his practice of yoga. Remember, we talked about 3 lives of Bharat Maharaj in our Bhagavad Gita class this week. And finally, Krishna is speaking about after reviving his divine consciousness, he is naturally getting attracted to the yogi principles without any endeavor. And finally, after many years of perfection, he attains the ultimate goal. Let's move on to our last section, yogi. After describing all this, Krishna is finally concluding in this section that Astanga-Yoga is actually much better than Tapasvi, Jnani and Karma Yogi. But then finally Krishna is giving a final statement to Arjuna, who is very dear to my heart and who is the topmost yogi. Yoginam api sarvesham madgane tanatmana shraddhavan bhajte omam same yukto tamomata. Krishna is saying, out of all the yogis, the person who is always abiding in me, thinking of me with great faith, and bhajte omam, who is doing loving devotional service onto me, is very much intimately connected to me. And that is my opinion, Arjuna. So in this way, after describing the entire process of Astanga-Yoga, understanding that how Arjuna is feeling that it is difficult to practice, it certainly is, right? While all yoga systems are certainly beneficial, and the easiest and most efficient and essential path is known as Bhakti Yoga, the yoga of devotion. In this age, the primary practice of Bhakti Yoga is what? Is mantra meditation, chanting of the names of the God. Let's chant together. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Now Krishna is going to speak about Bhakti Yoga. He has given us the glimpse of Bhakti Yoga in this last shloka. Now Krishna is going to elaborate this last shloka into, not the next chapter, into the next 6 chapters. And these 6 chapters is going to describe the Bhakti Yoga process, the topmost process. Very important process which will help us intensify our devotional service, which we'll cover in our next video. Hare Krishna.